All right, well, let's get started. Great, so thanks for joining this morning. My name is Spence Green. I'm one of the co-founders of Lilt. And this morning we'll go briefly through the web application. Lilt is also available through an API if you want to integrate it with existing sites and apps. And we also have a JavaScript library that makes implementing Lilt in your own website very easy. So I'll say a few words about the company, and then we'll go right into the a walkthrough of the web application from the perspective of both PM and a translator, and then that'll leave about 5 to 10 minutes for questions at the end. So I hope everyone can hear me all right. If you can't hear me, raise your hand. You can communicate with me through this question box. If you look in the bottom of the Zoom app, you'll be able to see there's a QA button. And if you just want to ask a question, please do that. So let's get started. So like I said, my name is Spence Green. We started this company in the beginning of 2015 to commercialize some work that we actually started working on in the beginning of 2011. And what my co-founder and I were interested in was how people use machine translation. Specifically, how people who are doing professional translation can use machine translation most effectively and most efficiently to make their work faster. So we started working on both interfaces and machine translation systems that present empty output in an assistive fashion to somebody who's working. So what you're going to see is a system that gives you empty output as words and phrases while you type, and you can choose whether to use them or not. So the interface is very similar to like when you do a web search and it does query expansion and suggests words and phrases to you for your query, and that's well known to increase the relevance of the results that you get. And also this interface you use every day when you use a smartphone, and it uses predictive typing to correct spelling mistakes and to give you suggestions while you're typing on your phone. So a very similar idea to that, only for translation. So let's go through it. So this is the front-end web application, and it has sort of a lightweight TMS and a cat tool integrated in it. This is all cloud-based software, so there's nothing to install. So I'm just going to click Login up at the top, and you can create an account with an email address and your password, or if you have any sort of a Google account, like a Gmail account or a Google for Work domain, you can log in without a password, which is what I'm going to do using my work email. Okay, so I'll do that. And then we get to this main page, which we call the project dashboard. And each one of these cards is a project that I've been working on over time. And you can see the language pair, how many documents are in it, and how many words, and sort of when the last time I worked on it. So let's pretend for this example that I've just received a source document and potentially also translation memory and term base. And I'm going to set up a project for translation, and then I'm going to assign it to some translators. So the first thing I'll do is click this button, New Project, up here at the top, and we're going to translate a pop song. So I'm going to call this My Pop Song Project. The document that I have is in French, and we're going to translate it to English. And then the last thing that I'm going to be asked for here is what's called a memory. And this is a concept that's particular to Lilt and is probably the most important concept and the most often misunderstood concept. So let's just spend a minute on it. In Lilt, a memory is a collection of source target data. So these are source sentences and their translations, which is just translation memory, right? Well, in Lilt, this memory is used for several different things. First of all, it's used for the conventional translation memory. So when you upload TMX data, let's say, to the memory, you'll see both exact and fuzzy matches in the cat tool. But it's also used to train the machine translation system. So the translation memory data that you upload, the MT system will right away start training on it. And finally, it's also integrated with the term base. So as you upload terminology to this memory, you'll see it in the term base output in the Lilt cat tool, but the terminology will also go into the MT system. So you'll see the terms that you upload start to appear in the MT output. Now the memories are private to your account if you have a business account or you have a pro account. We don't share the data across users. But the power of them is that you can create multiple memories for the different types of content that you work on. And indeed, this is how you get the best suggestions and the best translation quality out of Lilt. So let's say concretely that you're a translator and you work on software support content, and you also happen to work on legal contracts. So a standard way of working for some people right now is they just accumulate a very large translation memory with all the translations that they've ever created ever, and they use that in all their projects. You can certainly do that in Lilt, but the machine translation quality that you're going to get is not going to be as good as if you separated the support content into one memory and the legal content into another memory. So what the MT system is going to try to do is it's going to try to specialize to the type of content that you work on, and you're always going to get better suggestions if you give the system data that is similar to the type of content that you're going to translate. So for me, if I was that kind of a translator, I would create one memory for legal content and one memory for support content, and I would just use and build up those memories over time. Okay, so coming back to our pop song example, I've got a few memories here, but I don't have a pop song memory. So I'm going to create one, and we'll just call it pop song memory. And this memory I would use over time as I translated pop songs, and it would get better for that particular type of content. So I'll click create, and when I do that, Lilt creates an empty project for me. And here, this is the list of documents in the project. You see that there aren't any right now, so let's fix that. So I will upload a Microsoft Word document that has a pop song in it off my local machine. And here it is, so it's just been imported. It has 6 segments and 27 words, and we haven't started translating yet. Now, if I had some TMX data or some a term base, which I don't have for this pop song, but if I did, I could upload it just here by clicking the Memory tab, and you can upload TMX, STL-TM, or one of these 4 terminology formats. When you do that, like I said, the data goes into the memory, it'll go into the conventional TM, and it'll also, the MT system will start training on it right away. There's some other tools here for project managers. There's a project report that will tell you the current status of a project and how quickly each translator has been working. There's a quote builder that'll give you a leverage report, so I'll just show you that really quickly. Here, we didn't upload any TM data, so we don't see any matches. We just see all new segments and 1 repetition. And this quote builder lets you, if you do have translation memory data, it lets you quickly convert back and forth between per word and hourly pricing if new pricing models are something that you're interested in. And then there's a couple options for delivering your work. You can generate a project level TMX file. If you have multiple documents in a project, you can export them all at once as a zip file. And if you're doing a review step, you can get a revision report that shows the changes that are made to the segments by the reviewers. Okay, so let's come back to the document list. And if I was a PM, now I've got the project set up. And what I do now is I would assign it to a translator and potentially a reviewer. I can do that by clicking Share next to the document. And then let's say I want to assign it to one of my colleagues, Kelly, for translation. And I have another colleague, Keith, and maybe I want him to review Kelly's work. Now, when I click Assign to both Kelly and Keith, what will happen is an email will be sent with a link to this document. If neither one of them have a Lilt account yet, there's a walkthrough that will help them set up a free account. If they do, then they will see this project and document appear in their project dashboard, and they can start working on it right away. Now, with the business edition of Lilt, we offer what's called a supply chain license. So you can assign as many translators and reviewers as you want to your account, and you don't pay for that. What you pay for in Lilt is the number of words that are translated. So you could have your entire freelancer roster of 100,000 freelancers all associated with your Lilt account, and you would only pay for the number of words that are translated each month, not the number of people that are associated with the account. Okay, so I'm not going to assign this to Kelly. I'm going to translate the document myself, but this would be at the point where the PM would assign the work off and then would switch to using the project report to monitor the progress of the project. So I'll close this here, And then I'm going to go into, I'm going to stop being a PM and start working as a translator. So if there are any PM questions, I'll just stop for 10 or 15 seconds here and ask them if you have them. Otherwise, we'll go right into the translation interface. Okay, everybody happy? All right, let's do some translating. So I'll click Open File here, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. There we go. And this is the translation interface. So you can see here that this document has 6 segments. I'm navigating up and down using the arrow keys. Each one of the source segments is in what we call a card. So here's the source French segment. Below that is the typing area where I'm going to type. And then below that is 2 rows that show the machine translation output. And I'll tell you how those work in a minute. Okay, so this sentence should be translated, lonely rivers flow to the sea. And let's see how we would translate it if we were doing basic post editing, which is the way that almost everyone works with machine translation right now. So in basic post editing, there would be a full empty output, like kind of up here somewhere or over on the right-hand side in a dialog box. And I'm speaking in the way that people use MT and other tools right now. And you would select the MT output, put it in the typing area, and then you would start manipulating it. So here, this is not translated correctly, so I'll change this to lonely rivers flow. Maybe I want this to be into the sea, and we're done. So you see what I did there? The interaction was I took the full sentence output, I looked for an error, I used the mouse to highlight the error, and then I used text manipulation to fix the error, and then navigate to the end of the sentence. So it was more of this sort of find, detect, fix activity than just doing translation. And if I get down to segment number 3, you notice that this phrase lonely rivers recurs again, and the MT system gets it wrong again, although wrong in a different way. So if I was doing basic post editing, again, I'd have this full sentence MT output here, and then I'd start fixing the errors. So I'll type lonely rivers. And then I recognize this phrase should be translated wait for me, and it's not, so I'll fix this, wait for me, and I'll fix this, wait for me, and I'm done. You see, in this case, I probably spent more time hunting for errors and fixing them than if I had just translated this segment from scratch. Okay, so that's basic post editing. That's the way that people work with MT today, and here's how you work with MT and Lilt. So instead of taking that full sentence output and correcting it, I'm just going to start typing. So I'll type lonely, and every time I type a word, you see that the MT output changes. It's going to give me a full suggestion for this sentence based on what I've typed so far. So here it gets lonely in the right place. It doesn't put rivers quite in the right place. So I'm going to keep working, and now I see I get this suggestion flow to the sea, and that's pretty good. And instead of typing, I can hit the Enter key to autocomplete each word that appears in purple. Okay, you can also do reordering. So let's say I wanted this term C. You know, sometimes MT output, the word order is incorrect, but say this word is the one that I want. I can start typing C and insert it there and continue. There's also a hotkey to take the whole thing. So I was hitting the Enter key to insert each one of these words in purple, but if I want to take the full suggestion, I can hit Shift Enter to take the whole thing. And it's really sensitive to what I type. So here, the MT system is saying that it thinks the next word is flow, but just below that, the MT system can give me lots of alternative translations. And here what it's saying is that although it thinks the next word is flow, there's some possibility it might be flowing or empty. So if I start typing empty and insert that, you see I get a different suggestion that's empty into the sea, so it gets the verb preposition idiom correct. Okay, so let's go back to flow. This was the translation that I was happy with. I'll hit Enter and then Shift Enter and take the whole thing. So you see there, the mode of interaction is very different than basic post editing. In this instance, I was authoring. I was writing the translation, and then if I saw things that were useful and sped me up, I would just select them using some hotkeys. Okay, so that is the predictive typing. Now we'll look at adaptation. So I mentioned that Lilt is an interactive, adaptive MT system. We've seen the interactive part, how the MT system responds to the translator. Now let's see the adaptive part. What I'm going to do is I'm going to confirm this translation and watch what happens in segment number 3. So I'll confirm using Control-Enter. And now you see that the MT system has already updated, and we get a new suggestion in which it's learned the phrase lonely rivers from segment number 1. So what happened here when I confirm the segment is this new source target pair went into the memory. So it'll now be used both as a potential translation memory match, but the MT system also learned from it. And you can see here that the MT system picked up the phrase lonely rivers from segment number 1, and now instead of fixing it in segment number 3, I can just hit the Enter key to auto-complete it. So sigh, now that's fine. Now I get to this weird phrase, look me, and here you can see that I get wait as a next word alternative, so I'll start typing wait. That's not quite right. Insert the preposition. Now it's looking pretty good. Wait for me, and we're done. Okay, so there we got significant acceleration from the information that was learned from segment number 1, but then also as I start to refine the translation, it's giving me better suggestions based on what I've typed so far. Okay, so that's the adaptation. I also mentioned that there's a conventional translation memory here, so exact matches are a good thing. Here you see a repetition in segments 5 and 6. I'll use Shift-Enter to take the MT output because the MT is pretty good. Control-Enter to confirm, and I have exact match auto-propagation turned on. So you'll see there's an exact match, and it gets confirmed right away for me. And it gives me some information. So it says here that I was the one who created this match, my contact information, and when I created the match. So if you're working in a big translation team, or you're working with a memory that's being built up over time, for every match that shows up, you can see when it was created and who created it. Okay, so that's the TM. Now let's talk about, I mentioned that there's a term base also integrated with this memory. So if we highlight any source word or phrase and click the magnifying glass, this window pops open on the right-hand side, which we call the lexicon. So here there's a terminology view, a glossary, and just below that is a concordance, and the concordance entries are ranked based on relevance to what I'm working on. So you see here that segment number 1, which also contained that word see, already appears in the concordance, and then I get some other human translations here. This is very much like Lingui, only unlike Lingui, these results are ranked based on the relevance to what I'm working on. So I get more human translations here where I can see the word that appears in context. And I can click on these alternatives in the glossary, and the concordance will be resorted to show me where this word pair appears in the data. So I can just sort of click through here, and you'll see that get an example where the glossary entry appears. Now let's go back to segment number 3 and delete what I typed. You see here that segment number 3, the MT output is already updated. Now it's getting wait for me correct because we translated this phrase down in segment number 5, and when we come back to segment number 3, the MT system has already incorporated the translation from segment number 5, and now I'm getting a better suggestion for segment number 3. But recall that the first time we went into segment number 3, the translation of this term was look me, and that was not quite right. So if we look up this term, we'll see that it doesn't appear in the glossary at all. And in the concordance, there's only one entry of it. And this is in the baseline training data of the machine translation system. So the reason we got a really bad translation is because it just had never seen this phrase. Well, actually, it had only seen it once, and it hadn't seen a very good translation of it. So what you can do with the term base is you can add entries. So I'm going to add this to the term base. And when I click this check mark, what's going to happen is it's going to go into the glossary, but it's also going to go into the MT system. And the MT system will use the terminology that I specify. So I'll click the check mark. Now you see that it appears here in the glossary. But if we come over to segment number 3, we'll see now that we see this phrase used in the machine translation output. So if I had set up my glossary correctly before translating this document, when I got to this segment after translating segment number 1, I'd get lonely rivers, and then I get wait for me, and I'd be done. And it'd be very, very rapid. And so this is really powerful if you get a term base from a client, let's say. You load up that term base before you start the project, and then as you work through a document, the MT system will always respect the terminology that's in the term base, and it'll highlight it for you in the output in the bottom, so you know this is a term that I'm meant to use in my translation. And that way you can enforce terminological consistency both for your own projects if you're a freelance translator, or if you're an LSP working with a large group of translators, you can ensure that the client terminology is respected across all the translators who are working. Okay, so that's how the term base and the MT system are integrated through the memory. The last thing that I'll show you is about tags. So here you see in segment number 2 that this phrase, which means open arms, was highlighted in green in the original Word document. Now the MT output looks pretty good, so I'll just take all of it. And you notice that I don't have to deal with the tags in the typing area here. So what's going to happen is I'm going to confirm this segment, and when I do that, the MT system is going to project the tags from source to target for me. And then I'll be able to review where it places them and manipulate them if I want to. So I'll hit Control-Enter to confirm. And now observe up here on the top of the screen, there's actually 3 different modes in our CAT tool. There's the editor mode, which I've been working in, and the second one is tags mode. And if I click that, you can see here that the MT system has placed the tags in the target for me. Here it's actually placed them in the right place, but sometimes it doesn't get the boundaries quite right. And if it doesn't get them right, you can just grab the tag and move it around. And click the check mark, and then it'll be placed like that when you export the document. The final mode in our editor is called QA mode, and here you can run a variety of QA checks. So like, let's say there's trailing spaces there. I can run the QA check, and it'll tell me there's trailing spaces in segment number 3. So the way you're meant to use this CAT tool, it's based on a concept called separation of concerns, which means you have a view that's specific to some task that you're doing. So here, our editor mode is really designed for creating translations as quickly as you can. The tags mode is for more DTP type work, where now you've created your translations and you want to make sure that they're formatted correctly. And finally, the QA mode is for doing a self-check. You can also run a spelling corrector here, and there's a variety of QA checks that will all run over the target text as part of your final check. Okay, so that's the main functionality of the editor. The last thing that I'll say is how you get help. There are 2 ways. There's a help button up here on the top. If you click that, our knowledge base, which is a series of articles going through everything that I've talked about in this talk, but also more advanced concepts. These are very short articles that mostly have screenshots that walk you through the various features of the system. So there are those sorts of articles. And then the other way you can get support is in every account, you'll see a button in the lower right-hand corner. It's not turned on in my account because I have a developer account. But in the lower right corner, there'll be a button with a question mark. You can click that and a chat window will pop open. And we offer, for our paid accounts, free 24/7 support. So, and you know, if you have a software issue, an issue with a file that you're trying to import, you have a question about how to do something, we have real-time support worldwide for you right inside the application. This is also the way that we really prefer and are eager to get feedback about the products. The product development is driven almost entirely by feedback from our users, and that's the way to let us know if you like something or you don't like something. Okay, so that's a walkthrough of the system. We've got a few minutes left. If there are any questions, please ask them now through the QA button. And thanks for attending today. Any questions? Here we go. How do you count the words per hour? All right, so you can see up here that there is this words per hour counter. And the way that this is counted is the number of confirmed source words divided by the total translation time. And translation time is recorded at 4-second intervals while the editor is open. So while it's open here, it's logging time. It will pause after 3 minutes. So if you, I don't know, get up and go get a coffee or go talk to your friend or something, It'll stop recording after 3 minutes, and then as soon as you start working again, it'll start recording time again. Placeholders, how are placeholder tags represented? So we have a placeholder format. So I guess there's placeholders and placeables. So we have a placeholder format that's like this, and that'll be represented directly in the editor. And then you can also have variables like this, which, and you know, people have all sorts of different variable formats. We don't support all those different variable formats, but you can wrap anything in this syntax here, and it will be preserved in the editor. So yeah, that's how that works. We don't have any specific sort of date and currency and number handling that's going to sort of transfer that correctly right now. What was the source of the tags? Well, the tags were in the original Microsoft Word document. So I had a Word document, and this phrase here was, well, I can just show you. Let's open the document up. So you can see here in the original document, this phrase was highlighted in green. What if the blocks are not in the right order in the target language? Do you mean the let's see? Do you mean the tags? Maybe you can ask a follow-up. I'm not sure what you mean by blocks. Can we get a list of shortcuts? Of course. So there's this question mark button in the editor, and if you click on that, there's a list of the most commonly used hotkeys here. And then if you also look in the knowledge base, there's a longer list of hotkeys as well. When you upload glossaries as TM, they will be added to the lexicon automatically. Yes, they will be. If they're in any one of the terminology formats, like TBX, for instance, or two-column Excel sheet, they will be added to this lexicon window for you on import. Okay, that's a lot of questions. Anyone else? Follow-ups? I didn't answer anything clearly? Anyone? All right, well, we're right on time then. I hope everyone enjoys their day. Thanks for joining. I hope to see you on the system, and let us know if you have comments or questions. Thanks so much.